And we're on.
Hey, late night from Willowdale. We've done a couple in a row now, and I don't want to clog YouTube or Facebook with our videos. And sometimes we don't do one for a number of months, so lots happening. A couple of topical issues. So that I wanted to talk about. So today I was watching an interview on CNN, Fareed Zakaria, GPS, with Hillary Clinton. And I got to tell you, really, 77,000 votes spread among 3 states, and she would have been president. Incredible. You have this crooked idiot in the White House, in the Oval Office, and God, it would have been much better to have Hillary as president. I know a lot of people on the left don't like Hillary, didn't like Bill, don't like the Clintons, but really, she was so eloquent today at this interview. This was an interview done with Fareed Zakaria at the Women's Forum in New York, organized by Tina Brown, the great Tina Brown. It was a packed audience at the Lincoln Center in New York. And she was so eloquent, talking about human rights, talking about America's place in the world, talking about women's rights and women's power. And she was so eloquent. I thought, my God, Hillary, if you had been that eloquent during the 2016 campaign, you would be sitting behind the Resolute desk in the Oval Office. And she was so good. And I just thought, I thought, Jesus, Hillary, boy. I know, during a campaign, sometimes you get so caught up in the whole technicalities of the campaign, you just can't speak your voice. But I wish Hillary had spoken her voice, because a couple of times after the 2016 campaign, I've seen her speak, and she's been good. Today, she was brilliant in this interview format. And she was, and I just think, America's loss and the world's loss. And I know a lot of people on the left will say, Andrew, you're crazy. But no, Hillary would have been a great president of the United States. And she's not a perfect human being. She comes with a lot of baggage, but she would have been a great president. But that's done, and it's over. She had run a better campaign, articulated the kind of vision she did today. She probably would have been president. But I don't think, in some ways, though, even though it was a very close race, and she only lost by 77,000 votes spread among 3 states in the Electoral College, everyone knows she won the popular vote. There clearly wasn't a resentment in the United States that put a guy like Donald Trump, even though it was a close race and Donald Trump won by the skin of his teeth. The fact that he even got there says a lot about where society is. And, and over the last 2 years since Donald Trump's victory, and we've seen all the thugs emerge on the planet Earth from democratic societies, right? We have seen Orban and somewhat democratic societies, I should say. Orban in Hungary. We've seen Erdogan. We've seen Putin. We've seen, the
Italian guy or the
Bolsonaro. We've seen what's happened in Italy. Then we have the Brexiteers. People, the Brexit types, and of course we have Donald Trump, and all appearing to populist right-wing nationalism, which is basically nationalism based on racism, racism, fear of others,
xenophobia.
Xenophobia,
right?
And that's what nationalism, and it's manifests itself, and we've really seen it manifest itself in the last couple of years. Netanyahu, of course, in Israel, is just won re-election, sadly.
Well, we won't know till this week, right?
Yeah, we won't know.
But most likely he'll.
Most likely, yeah. And it's very sad. It's very ignorant. It's anti-intellectual. It's not based on facts. It's not based on anything. And that's what I guess I'm doing this video because Hillary sort of hit on it. She said, and I've emphasized this in these videos. Two of the most horrible wars in the history of humankind were fought in the second, in the the 20th century. For the war to end all wars, World War I, and then the Second World War, which was even more vicious. She said it: gulags, concentration camp, you name it, all came out of the 20th century. And then we set up institutions to try to prevent it, and they're not perfect. And they were dominated by the Americans, no question. The IMF, the World Bank, and then there was NATO, and then there was the European Union, and then there was and then all these smaller groups like the G7 and stuff, and then we have the G20, and we have APEC. We have all these institutions to try to get the world to collaborate. I could go on and on and on, but these are good things. They're not perfect, and yes, a lot of people get left behind, and I understand the whole. I do get it that people are left behind in trade.
Yeah, go ahead. That's Chris's mom messaging me.
Oh, okay, that's good. Hey, Chris's mom, and then we get I get it, but Hillary Clinton hit it on the nub. Institutions were set up after the Second World War, after the second horrible war in the 20th century, to constrain human behavior, and it's sort of being undone. And then, of course, we had the International Criminal Court that was the U.S. and China and Russia never signed on because they didn't want to become subjects to their authority. And of course, now the U.S. has said no way, and even got Amnesty International to sign off on, or not Amnesty. I'm not going to condemn anyone.
What was it? Maybe I might.
The
know.
International Criminal Court. They wanted to investigate war crimes in Afghanistan.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. Sorry.
Sorry, I'm not. Amnesty condemned it. Sorry, don't want to blame Amnesty here. They condemned, and the International Criminal Court backed off. Said no, we're not going to investigate war crimes in Afghanistan because it involves the U.S. and whatever. And we've talked about this on previous videos. And Amnesty condemned it. So Amnesty condemned it. Sorry. This is just so that the International Criminal Court was another institution Canada totally backed, and the Europeans backed, to bring war criminals to justice, and it has brought certain war criminals to justice. The U.S. doesn't want to have anything to do with it because they don't want to be brought to justice, either as China or Russia or a lot of other countries. But the ICC backed off and going after the U.S. on Afghanistan. Yes, and Amnesty condemned it. Sorry, but anyways, so we have these institutions. The European Union is, I think, one of the most important institutions. And what's going on with Brexit is so disheartening. And yeah, and it's.
I mean, apparently even the opposition isn't too clear on.
Yeah, now Britain's in turmoil because they don't know what to do, and the Europeans have given them an extension. The Europeans are fed up, and they have a right to be fed up. I mean,
I get it together.
Britain unfortunately still clings to empire. They still believe that they are an imperial country. They still want to be. They want to be the United States, but they're not. And all the other imperial countries of Europe have given up their imperial destinies. The Dutch, the Dutch were a major naval power, the Golden Age, right? A huge power. They fought the Brits. They fought the Spanish. The Dutch were a major power. They've given up their
hegemony
and their
militaristic prowess.
I can't even think of the words. My English language is lacking. But the Dutch no longer cling to empire. The French no longer cling to empire. The Spanish have one of the greatest empires of all time. They, look at most good chunk of the world speaks Spanish. And they don't cling to empire anymore. So yeah, the Dutch, the Spanish, the French, the Portuguese, they've all given up their imperial glories, if I could say that. I can't even think of the word. I'll come to me later. But everyone knows what I'm talking about. But the Brits don't want to give up their longing for empire, and that's this whole thing with Brexit. Like they don't want to be part of a bigger, broader coalition of countries, and that's wrong, because the Britain has solely benefited from their participation in the EU, and that's why Brexit is so controversial, because Britain will suffer. They're already suffering. London's already suffering. So I think Brexit is a classic example of how stupid nationalism is hurting everybody. The EU will continue. The European Union will not die. The European Union, I'm saying this, is so important because it came out of the wreckage of the Second World War. It was first the European Common Market, and then it became the European Union. And then at the Maastricht Treaty in 1992, they adopted the currency. And every country thought, hey, no problems. The Dutch, I'm biased because I'm, my Dutch heritage, but the Dutch gave up the guilder and said, yeah, why not? Most people in Holland speak English. They don't care. Gave up the guilder. We want to be part of a wider community. The Germans had no problems giving up the Deutschmark. The French had no problems giving up the franc. So, but the Brits still cling to this, and that's the problem. I don't know what's going to be resolved there. Anyways, I'm rambling a bit, but good things came out of the wreckage of nationalism, and now we're revisiting nationalism, and Trump is the classic example of this, and this is why comparisons between Nixon and Trump are wrong, because Nixon was an internationalist. Nixon was an internationalist. He understood the U.S. role in the world, and he did a lot of bad things. And I think Watergate was a two-bit break-in compared to some of the other scandals that have gone. Iran-Contra, as I said, being the Iran-Contra thing in the late 80s was far worse than I think Watergate. And but Nixon was an internationalist. He was a smart guy. And comparing him to Trump is kind of an insult to Nixon's legacy, actually. Trump was a crook. He became president as a crook. The thing with Trump is everyone knew he was a crook. Everyone knew he was a sleazebag. Everyone knew he was a sexual predator. And they elected him anyways. So that tells you something. And as we read that guy in the New York Times a couple of weeks ago, said, Americans, they wanted the Mueller report to cleanse them. They think, the Russians interfered in our elections. That'll just absolve us of all responsibility for electing Trump. No. The Russian collusion thing's a minor thing. You elected Trump because you wanted a racist, a demagogue, and an idiot as your president. And, if you look at the people who elected Donald Trump, they don't have a lot of intelligence. I'm sorry. I agree with Hillary. Basket of deplorables. People who don't have a lot of intelligence, don't think much, don't know much. Yes, they are suffering because life hasn't dealt them a good card. But they elected an idiot and a crook and a racist who's not making their lives any better, because populists never make your lives better. They make your lives worse. The GM closed these plants in Ohio, like they are in Ontario, despite Trump. People are losing their jobs. Manufacturing is going away. Trump can't bring it all back. So populists tend to make your lives worse. These tax cuts that Trump enacted are going to make your lives worse because it's going to take money away from all sorts of other programs. I could go on and on and on. And that happens here in Ontario. Doug Ford is going to make your life worse. He's not going to make your life better. This transit plan that he enacted, I agree. As I said, I'm a big advocate of taking the TTC over and creating a regional, provincially run transit authority. But what Doug Ford promoted last week was just a joke. It's all words. None of that's going to happen. Just words. And Trump, I don't compare Doug Ford to Trump. I don't like those comparisons. There are some ignorance and all that. But
words can be hurtful, though.
Yeah. Trump and Ford are similar in some ways. They're both dumb. They're both sleazy. But Ford, I don't think Doug Ford is the racist that Donald Trump is. He's not. He's not. He's just. But his cuts and the things he's doing is going to hurt people in Ontario. And he has the same stupid view on the environment as Donald Trump, as does Jason Kenney in Alberta, who most likely be elected on Tuesday in Alberta. And that brings me to that election. Rachel Notley and Jason Kennedy have the same view. They want pipelines built. They want to get Alberta oil to Tidewater. But people are going to, and Rachel Notley's a decent human being. Like Kathleen Wynne was a decent human being. And she's progressive. And she wants things done. But she won't get elected because Jason Kennedy appeals to people's stupidity. Just like Doug Ford did. Just like Donald Trump does. And it's sad because she's the better person. And she's done nothing wrong. Jason Kennedy will not get pipelines to Tidewater. It's a federal and their jurisdiction. There are all sorts of issues. British Columbia is resisting. So what is Jason Kennedy going to do? Is he going to invade British Columbia? Like, come on. So why is Rachel Notley suffering? Because she can't do anything about it. And it's because Kennedy is playing again like Ford and Trump to the dark side, the stupidity of people.
In a recent Maclean's interview, Notley looked kind of iffy on the question, is she in a good relationship with Justin Trudeau? And I thought that was interesting. Like, I mean, it's not what she would have said.
But she isn't now.
Right.
But, Justin Trudeau bought them a pipeline. Okay, like, Justin Trudeau has done nothing wrong here. He wants the oil to go to Tidewater, too. You can blame Justin Trudeau for all sorts of things, but not that one. And now Kennedy's fighting Justin Trudeau, and he's using Notley as his, he's
like a scapegoat.
Like she's a tool of Justin Trudeau, which he's not. Anyways, again, the Alberta election, I hope I'm proven wrong, but I doubt I will be. If Rachel Notley wins, great, but I don't think so. And again, it's like Kathleen Wynne. Kathleen Wynne was far the better person. And yes, the Liberals have been in power a long time. There were some scandals. But really, now we got Doug Ford, who doesn't know what he's doing, never reads anything, doesn't know anything, has no real policies, does things on the fly, just like Donald Trump. I don't want to make the total comparisons. But I'm rambling on this video, but,
That's okay. I love it.
Yeah, it's about human stupidity, populism, human stupidity, looking at history. Richard Nixon, yes, he was a populist in a way. He talked about the silent majority, and there are comparisons to Donald Trump, no question. But Richard Nixon was a pretty intelligent guy, and he was no Donald Trump.
Why was he so paranoid? Like in the documentary,
he was paranoid. He was insecure, just like Trump. He was paranoid. He never. Even though he had this storied career in politics, right? He was kind of a insecure, paranoid, and that's very dangerous. Donald Trump is that too, but he doesn't have Richard Nixon's credentials. And Richard Nixon actually did some good things on the world stage and domestic policy. They are similar in many ways. They're both racist. But Richard Nixon did some good things domestically where Donald Trump has done nothing. Anyways, there were a couple of other points I wanted to make, but I've rambled on long enough.
Did we cover everything that Hillary said in the interview?
Hillary was really good. And
did she have any specific opinions about Buttigieg?
Yeah, he raised some questions critical of her, and she didn't want to go critical of any of the Democratic candidates, but
she loves women running, right? More than one, too.
And I think women are running because of her. Don't forget, she is a seminal figure in world politics. She almost, within 70,000 votes, she would have been the president of the United States. You know what I mean? Like, she's a seminal figure in American politics, and she's encouraged all those women that are running in the Democratic for the presidency are there because of her. So you got to give her some credit. Anyways, going back to CNN, that's where I'll end this. And the environment. I in the last video, I forgot. I'm not an eco freak or anything. Everyone knows that. I support pipelines and all that. But what I hate is human behavior that is stupid. So there was a piece in the New York Times a couple of weeks ago about a whale. You remember this, Cleve? A whale caught off, I think it was Indonesia. It had so much plastic in it.
Yes, I remember that. I see that, yeah.
it was stunning. And goes to, like, why do people drink water out of plastic? I mean, I understand in some countries we don't have clean drinking water, but in Western societies, why do people drink water out of plastic bottles? Really? Really?
And you can only recycle plastic once.
Yeah. You know, I see so many people drink water out of plastic bottles, and I'm thinking, that's disgusting, particularly in like a place like Toronto where you get good, clean drinking water out of Lake Ontario. Like, it's disgusting. So reduce your plastic. You know, and I'm saying that to all the smokers who throw their stupid butts under the street.
Most of the garbage collected in Toronto is cigarette butts.
Yeah, cigarette butts. And a lot of it ends up in Lake Ontario.
Mm.
You know, smokers, I don't care if you smoke. I drink wine, I drink beer. Like, wrap your butt in a napkin or something, put it in your pocket, and at least have it go to landfill. Don't have it land in Lake Ontario.
And don't throw your cigarettes in the recycling bin either, because it catches fire, and it catch fire. Yeah. Like, I mean, you got to tell people this stuff, like, because honestly, people don't know.
You know, personal responsibility on the environment is what I care for. You know, it's not the big things; it's just personal things you do. You know, walk. You know, take public transit. Don't drive a car. Don't have kids. I'm a big fan of
no kids. Absolutely. No kids.
There's no future for them. Why have kids?
It ruins their lives and it ruins your life.
There's no future for kids. The planet will be uninhabitable in 100 years. I don't think. I have to admit, there's no hope for the environment. I can't. There's no hope. The Arctic is melting. Canada's melting more than any other country on the planet Earth. Warming up. It's melting and warming up. I know.
Feedback effects, right?
Yeah. Look at the long spring, nasty winter, and it doesn't seem to end. But the Arctic Canada's warming up more than any other country on the planet Earth. Just think about that. I know you don't see it, but it is, and that's why we have the colder winters down south, because the cold air,
the polar vortex,
south.
And
so yeah, the planet's done. Frankly, I'm not. It's just. It's done. I think we've reached the tipping point. But at least do certain things to slow the demise of the planet. Don't have kids. Don't increase the population. Don't try to reduce plastics. Don't throw your cigarette butts onto the street. Small things you can do. Don't drive a car. Take public transit. So, yeah, and let's end on, this is a long rambling video, but I don't care. I have a lot to say.
We've done longer, actually, but...
Yeah. CNN, they do great documentaries, and they have some good panel discussions, particularly on U.S. domestic affairs. But internationally, they lack. And now I know CNN's a broad organization. They have CNN International, they have CNN Europe, CNN India. But the channel we get in North America, which is Canada and the U.S., they never talk about international affairs. And this is why I've said this in previous videos. This is why a lot of Americans are not knowledgeable about what the hell goes on the planet Earth. Because they just don't get it they don't get it on their local newscasts. They don't get it on their local newspapers. Most Americans don't read the New York Times or the Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal or the Financial Times. And they don't get it on the cable news. And CNN, okay, the classic example was last week with the coup in Sudan, which is a great thing. It's still transition. We know where things are going. But there was a coup in Sudan. We talked about this in the previous video. But this bastard Bashir, who the U.S. is trying to warm up to, but now he's gone. The military deposed him, and now anyways, this is still in transition. A lot of protests. Sudan, they want a civilian government in Sudan. They never had one. They want one. This wasn't even covered on CNN the day it was happening. This is a big international news story. I mean, a huge story. The coup in Sudan wasn't even covered on CNN. Wasn't even mentioned. It was a lead item. Even on CP24, the local channel here in Toronto, the cable channel. They have more international news than CNN will ever have. That was a big thing on CP24. It was a big thing on the CBC. Wasn't even covered on CNN. Like, it's all about Trump and Mueller. Trump, Mueller. Trump, Mueller. And I don't people at CNN see how provincial and parochial they are? Really? And I'm not saying they do some good documentaries, but really. There's so much more to say, but yeah. Alberta, please, Alberta, don't go crazy on Tuesday. Re-elect Rachel Notley. Don't elect the ignorant, dumb, populist Jason Kenney. On that note, I'm out.
Okay.